In a world of reboots and remakes, we have a new one to add to the list. On March 18th, Zack Snyder's Justice League was released. This film was made because of the fans who were displeased with the first Justice League, which came out in 2017. But now, 4 years later, their prayers were answered, and we are getting the originally intended version of the Justice League movie in a 4-hour film from director Zack Snyder. 4 years, 4 hours. I like that. Now let's get into our spoiler-free review of Zack Snyder's Justice League, but we will be releasing a spoiler talk video separately on the BKTV YouTube channel, so keep an eye out for that. The first question we've got to answer is, what did we think about the movie overall? So, Jackson?
Overall, I think the movie really improved upon what originally Zack Snyder had in mind. Joss Whedon picked it up after an unfortunate circumstances, and he did fairly well with it, but Snyder's vision was lost in the translation. So now that we have Snyder's Justice League finally out and what he wanted, I mean, it makes sense now.
Yeah.
Because the first one did not make really that much sense, because you could tell two different people had a different vision and they really did not mesh together well. So
I would say that the first movie, the Joss Whedon movie, really hit the main points of the Zack Snyder film. You could tell in this film that there were different scenes added that really gave a lot of much-needed context for this Justice League movie. So whenever you're going into this movie, it's really the same movie as Justice League, but with a lot of, I would say, necessary material added, but also some unnecessary material, which we'll get to. But overall, I thought that it was, if you're a fan of these characters, it's a worthwhile movie to check out. And if you liked or didn't like the first Justice League movie, still worth looking at, because you'll definitely be getting something different than what you originally saw. And I thought it was a fun ride overall. So what did we think they did really well with this movie?
overall, I think the pacing of the movie went really well. I didn't even realize I was already 3 hours into the movie by that time, because of the way that he used his shots and the way that the story progressed. It just felt natural, and as we'll get to later, there were some added shots that did feel a little bit unnecessary, but overall, it really helped the character development, especially with characters like Cyborg.
Oh yeah.
Really helped those characters feel connectable too. And
yeah, I think they really made the characters that we got in the first Justice League movie, like Cyborg and Flash, and Justice League was the first, well, technically second time we got to see Aquaman, but at the same time, those characters really weren't fleshed out at all in Joss Whedon's movie. And in this one, they really hit on Cyborg's character. But overall, all the characters kind of play the same role that they did in the first Justice League movie that we got. And I think you're not going to be getting something in this film that is worse than the first film. I think Zack Snyder's vision really brought everything together, and there were questions that were brought up in the first film that this film answers. So what do we think the film did not do so well?
The duration of the movie, 4 hours, of course. There were a lot of scenes that could have been cut.
Oh yeah.
Especially the introduction of Aquaman. There were a lot of scenes with background characters where they were just singing, and
that was such an awkward scene.
It felt confusing. I didn't know what was happening, but
yeah, I think that the problem that this movie faced is the amount of time that it had. I think it's very clear that Zack Snyder came together with this and they said, okay, you're going to get your movie that you wanted, or that the fans wanted, I should say, which is really nice that we did get this movie. But I think definitely he was just given this opportunity to make the movie, and so every idea that he possibly had was just thrown.
It's like he said, you want the whole thing? Here's the whole thing.
So we're going to just wrap this up here and give our final thoughts. Jackson, what do you think?
I think overall the development of Cyborg, the addition of giving him a robotic voice too, really helped him stand out and maybe get a lot of new fans for him. Maybe the Whedon version did not really hit home with a lot of fans. They're like, I don't know who this guy is, I don't really care about him. The whole development of all of the characters, of Flash, Aquaman had a lot of development, which really helped get into his own solo Aquaman film that came out in 2018, and Wonder Woman and Batman had already been around, so it was really nice. The addition of the black Superman costume was really nice too.
I would say that this movie is I don't want to say it's completely necessary, but if you care enough about the first Justice League movie or these characters in general, you should definitely check it out. Overall, I think this movie is definitely enjoyable, and if you care about these characters, you definitely got to go and see it. Thank you for joining us back once again. This time we are going into spoilers, so this is your spoiler warning, and we're just going to talk about anything and everything that comes to our minds. So I'm gonna start us off by just talking about some of the characters that we have going on. So the most important character from the first film, I think, was Superman, or at least the most important character that they wanted us to care about was Superman. And in this movie, Superman gets kind of put on the back burner, in my opinion. And I think that the black suit is really, really cool. However, in this film, he just comes back to life and then just chooses to put on the black suit. In the comic books, and I know they're not, just work with me here. In the comics, they kind of do, the black suit actually has a meaning. It's like a healing suit. After Superman becomes resurrected and he's back to life, he puts on this suit to help him with his powers. In this movie, it's like a fashion choice, which I don't know if that really works for Superman, because like the blue and red is kind of like the hope suit, I'm going to call it. And I think he would wake up from the dead and be like, okay, let's give some hope. Blue and red, let's go. Something like that. Another character that I thought always delivers in every movie that he's in, Aquaman. Jason Momoa is cool in everything, and like this movie is no exception. So at the end of the day, Aquaman has yet to be ruined for me. Another character that I was really pleasantly surprised by was Cyborg, and I'm not sure if I'm a fan of his design. It's like so techno. I kind of like I don't want to say comics design, but something a little bit more sleek, or I don't know. It just, yeah, something more traditional, something that looks bulky. He looks kind of thin, and it's like,
oh yeah,
he looks like he couldn't really fight too much. And I thought, but they did really do well with his character development, and like in the first film, he just seemed kind of like a moody teenager.
Yeah.
He's just angry, and then in this film, he's a moody teenager and angry, but it's somewhat justified. Like his father brought him back to life, and he seems very ungrateful, which I don't appreciate. So that kind of dampened it kind of messed the character up for me a little bit, because I wanted to like him more. But he definitely had the bigger role. One character I don't think they've figured out yet is Flash. Flash. They haven't figured it out. They either want him to be super funny and like this like comedic character who runs weird. Like, have you watched him run? Dude, it's crazy. His running is not fixed in this movie. He looks weird. Like whenever he's at the very end, whenever he's running back through time, and he's like, the way he runs is just so weird. Like, I don't care about the arms, but his legs just don't. There's something up with the legs. What do you have?
Well, originally with the 2017 version of Justice League, that's what I knew that as Justice League because I didn't know what else to expect. I didn't know the Snyder Cut really existed. So I was like, yeah, that's a DC movie right there. That's cool. I mean, it seemed like it was trying to kind of be too much like Marvel. I mean, Whedon did direct the Avengers, but the characters in that movie felt very scripted. They were scripted because they were actors reading off the script. But
Batman makes jokes.
Batman does not joke. That's not Batman, you know? But in the Snyder Cut, felt serious. There was a lot of language, and it was a rated R movie.
I was pleasantly surprised by that.
And it felt like a DC movie again. And DC movies get a lot of hate. The DCEU are very dark, literally dark movies. You really can't see what's going on the screen half the time. But that's their style, and a lot of people don't really like that just because they're so used to the MCU, which is a very light thing. And with Whedon, that really,
you can tell,
was not very balanced.
Yeah, you can tell Zack Snyder and the way he shoots, everything is darker. I'm pretty sure Zack, didn't he do Man of Steel? Mm-hmm. He did Man of Steel, he did Batman vs. Superman, and all of those are very kind of darker films. It's less superhero-y and bold. And like in Wonder Woman 1984, her costume, her suit is very like bright and hopeful, and that worked for the tone of that film. However, I think where DC can work is if they go darker than Marvel. And the darkest we've gotten is Batman vs. Superman. And I think Ben Affleck as Batman has only been as cool as he's only gotten as cool as he was in Batman vs Superman. Warehouse scene blew my mind, and it's very, you can tell who's directing these films, and it's something that the DC Universe movies have really just been able to show, that the director does matter, and it's really interesting.
And like you said about the fights, you can really tell that this isn't a flashy movie. I mean, The Flash isn't very good, but these fight scenes feel gritty. They feel real. They feel like if these characters were real people in real life, that this is how these fights would go. Instead of like, oh, here comes the uppercut. Oh, he won. No, it's like, I'm going to laser you, punch you, and then laser your ear off or your horn, and then keep punching you. Superman actually felt like he wanted to destroy someone and like wipe them out.
Yeah.
But in other versions, like the Whedon version, he felt like, you know.
And like you brought up a good point. The fighting in this movie feels very real. Like people get ripped in half. Like whenever Steppenwolf is going into Atlantis, he's like ripping apart these Atlantean soldiers. Now it's not like gratuitous, whatever that word
Gruesome.
is. Whatever. No, there's another word. Gratuitous, whatever. You know what? It's not like aggressive and like spraying everywhere or anything, but it's like you see a little tinge of blood and people, one half is here and the other half is here. Like they definitely go there, and I think that's the way they need to do it. They need to be real and focus on realism, and that's why Man of Steel is probably the best DC movie so far in this new timeline. Wonder Woman definitely up there, but I think that this movie shows that these characters are important, and this movie was made because we, the fans, wanted it to be made, and so I really appreciate it for it.
And that realism factor, it really shows how, it just captures how great superheroes are as an idea, as like comics. It takes a realistic approach of and being in like, oh, these are humans, these are what like real people, but then they have something special. It keeps the mystique of it, or the mysticalness, if that's even a word. It keeps that this feels like it could happen in real life, but at the same time there's a guy flying around shooting lasers out of his eyes. It really makes what comics and superheroes in general makes them so special, and this Snyder Cut really captures that, and how you can take something that's real, something that isn't, and really bring them together, if that makes sense.
So another thing we got to cover is Martian Manhunter and Jared Leto's Joker. So we'll cover Martian Manhunter first. Martian Manhunter literally has 2 scenes in this whole movie. I personally felt like it was just thrown in, and I heard that it was actually supposed to be Green Lantern. But then Zack Snyder was told, no, don't do Green Lantern, probably because Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern and all that stuff. But he was originally wanting Green Lantern, but they were like, no, why don't you do Martian Manhunter? And so he threw Martian Manhunter in there. Martian Manhunter had 2 scenes. The first scene was where he disguised himself as Martha Kent and talked to Lois Lane. And then a scene at the end where he showed up at Batman's house. Scene at the end I could have cared less about. But I think Martian Manhunter's presence felt thrown in during his first scene where he was Martha Kent, because basically that scene is about them grieving Superman, but then at the end it's revealed that it's Martian Manhunter, and it just feels like they were throwing him in there, and it kind of ruined the hopeful scene about Lois get back to work. You know, you can pull through. That's what you'd want. Kind of ruined it for me. What did you think about Martian Manhunter?
Well, I personally am a very big Martian Manhunter fan. I really like that character and all of his lore and backstories. The character and the actor who plays Martian Manhunter was in Man of Steel, and he was in Batman vs Superman, I believe. So this character has technically been around since the first DC EU movie, but we didn't know it was him. And Snyder even confirmed a while ago that was him and he was supposed to be in the movie. But I agree, the way that they made him Martha Kent and then shapeshift into him, it kind of did take away the like tragic feeling of that scene, the powerfulness, like the grieving of that scene. But I did feel kind of sad that they set up Martian Manhunter for the next movies to come along, which won't happen. Sadly.
What's funny is like they show that he exists, but he never comes to aid them in the fight with Steppenwolf. So it's like we know we have the super being who is aware that he's a super being and can do stuff, and he's like the Watcher in Marvel, where he just kind of looks from a distance. Okay, they're doing good. It's just like, it's very weird. You have the super being that's not helping, which is very odd. And I think it would have been a lot better if they had Green Lantern.
I mean, Green Lantern is awesome, so.
Yeah, and they had a...
one thing about the Green Lanterns, though, the fans of Green Lantern will know that there was the first iteration of Green Lantern, the Sentinel now is he's called, the first Green Lantern of Earth actually made an appearance in this movie. He's the only Green Lantern in the movie. In a backstory, where they're or a flashback where they're fighting Darkseid and his armies, there's a Green Lantern who shows up. I don't remember his name off
He's
the
not
top of my
human.
head.
We know that.
He's not human, but he is the defender of Earth, and he goes up, faces Darkseid. He gets his hand cut off and stabbed through the chest, and we see his ring fly off into the distance, and that's a signal the ring's searching for a new user, a new person to be a Green Lantern. So that's a nice setup for maybe potentially Green Lanterns in the future.
They definitely have to do that. I think also another character we got to talk about is Jared Leto, who makes his second appearance as the Joker, and I was really pumped for it because I felt like he didn't get a fair shake in Suicide Squad, but his appearance here is very kind of thrown in. It's in the epilogue of the movie, so I mean really it's not part of the main story, but it feels very thrown in, and it was weird. It's like a post-apocalyptic scene where him and Batman and some other villains and heroes are together. It looks like Darkseid is one. Interesting. But Jared Leto just felt very thrown in, and I didn't like this performance that he did.
It felt very reminiscent of a former Joker and Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah.
Felt very, very similar. And then for keen-eyed DC fans, you will have also noticed one last cameo that I noticed, and you noticed too.
Did I?
Dr. Silas Stone, which is Cyborg's dad, had an assistant with him named Ryan Choi. And for fans of the comics, Ryan Choi is actually the second Atom. The Atom is a superhero who can change his size, and even at the end of the movie, they set that up by promoting him for like some sort of project he can start, which could hint at him becoming the Atom.
Yeah. So this movie really set up a lot of different things, and we are really excited for it. I am. I know you are. I hope you guys enjoyed the spoiler talk that we just did. And if you want more content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to BKTV Studios. I'm Carter Klessmeyer.
I'm Jackson Humphrey.
And thank you for watching.